Welcome to Field of Screams podcast. Today we'll be talking about the Stranger Things finale slash part 2 episode. I was actually going to do an episode over volume 2 of Stranger Things, but once it happened and they're like, oh, the finale's coming, and it was like one episode, even though that episode was like an hour long or hour and a half long. I can't remember how long it was. But part of me is like, why should I make an episode for Volume 2 and then I'd feel obligated to make an episode for the finale? And I don't know. I just had mixed feelings on it all. And again, thanks Netflix for the separated release dates type thing that they like to do. They did the same thing for Squid Games, and I feel like it ruins the momentum of every show that they do it for. Oh, but they do it for money. So, I'm not a CEO, so what do I know? So how I wanted to do this, sometimes I'll go through like event after event and talk about certain things, but I think just as a whole, like I'll just talk about it. Like there's lots of opinions about it out there already. So I figured I would just give like a, majority summed up version of like how I felt about it. And then I could just talk about the finale and the ending itself. And yeah, so let's just roll through it. So since the beginning of Stranger Things, like when this show started, like it kind of became, it was at season 1, like a lot of people absolutely loved it. Like when I first watched it, I thought the first season was cool, and then like as the seasons have came, I liked it more and more. It might have peaked in season 3, but I feel like overall all the seasons maintained like a standard, really good quality. There really isn't a season where I'm kind of like, oh, I hate it. And like we kind of get to this season, and I watched part 1 of this season, and I was like, you know what? Like I feel like we're setting up good things here, and with this show that's went on so long and has so many likable characters, I felt like they found a good place for Robin in part 1, but then when I watched volume 2, I don't know, like in my opinion, the character Robin, I think she was peak in season 3. She seemed a lot more confident. She seemed the straight man to Steve. And I like that version of Robin. And then it seemed like in season 4, like they're like, oh, Robin's going to be walking around with Nancy a lot. Nancy's also a straight man. We can't have two straight men, hanging out together. So we need to make Robin goofy. And Robin, like, she does this thing where she's like, oh, whenever I talk really quick because I just word vomit whatever comes at the top of my head. And, like, I kind of hate that. I'm like, oh, why do they do that with Robin? Like, and she was so much better in season 3. But I feel like she does it the most in this volume 2. She just kind of sticks out, which is disappointing because I've always really liked Robin. Even in season 4 where I'm like, whoa, they changed her character completely. I was still like, you know what, though? Like, I still like her because I like season 3 Robin. But, by the time, like, this season rolls around, like, I feel like it's getting more and more, like, I feel like Robin got a lot of screen time, and a major character like Mike did not get a lot of screen time. It felt like Mike was almost absent this entire season until, like, the very end, which is a very weird thing to call, which kind of comes to like my one big criticism as the season was going on. I think there was just too many characters, which I'm not the first one to say. But even like as they're getting together and making plans as a group, it feels like there's like 35 people in the room, and they need to like find time, find screen time, find lines for every single character. We got like the 4 boys, and then we got Max, and we got Lucas's sister, and then we got I don't know, like it just goes on and on. Jonathan and what's her? I'm forgetting. Love triangle. Steve, Nancy. You got Nancy. And then even Steve, like I felt like the shenanigans with Steve, like it just didn't seem like there were a lot of shenanigans with Steve, which is disappointing. Like Steve's almost kind of the poster boy besides Dustin, and oddly enough, Dustin was a huge grump in the first half of this season. Eventually, like we kind of find out, we all knew that he was grieving over Eddie, and he like kind of spills that to Steve, and they have their moment. But man, I felt like even though there was a lot of time in this season, the pacing just seemed like there is going 1,000 miles an hour, and they're like, oh, we got to answer this, we got to answer that, we got to answer this. And really, like the one big thing, they're like, we're gonna tell you what the upside down is. And then they're just like, yeah, it's a wormhole. And it's just like, oh, okay. Like it's like a tunnel between Vecna's world and our world. Okay, like that makes sense, I guess. But it was really never this like mind blowing thing. During the finale, the Duffer Brothers were like answering press questions, and like these questions, like they were being asked. When you run a show for like over a decade, people, there's like super fans of this show and like the theories that went on with this show. Like whenever I watched volume 1 of Stranger Things, like I went onto the Stranger Things subreddit and I joined it because I was like, oh, I'm excited. I want to be part of the theories. And man, there are thousands and thousands and millions of theories of people just staying up all night. And they're like, oh, did you notice that Steve paused for 4 seconds when he was talking to Dustin and then he looked kind of up towards the sky? Do you think that's signaling that maybe Eddie's still alive in the Upside Down and the Upside Down is like in the sky? And like I don't know, just the direction that they take these theories, like they go like way out there. And so by the time you start getting answers, like a finale in a show is extremely hard to land. I'm currently watching Game of Thrones, and I've heard the finale of that show is awful. I'm looking forward to seeing that car crash when it does, but I've enjoyed the show so far. But like, I don't know, just any general show like Breaking Bad, I think that usually kind of gets a pass, but even at the time, I think people like complained about it. The show Dexter that went on way too long, when they decided to like wrap that up, everyone hated the finale, and then they brought it back. And I'd even watch it when they brought it back, but I guess they tried to end it again, and everyone hated that ending. And then I think they brought it back again, and I think they tried to end it again, and I think everyone hated that ending. I didn't watch like the 2 resurrections of Dexter, but I'm like, you get the point. Like shows are very hard to end. It's hard to come up with answers and conclusions for characters that you follow around for years, and then like you give the answer and it's like super satisfying. It's very hard to do that. But I think this last season really struggled though, because like again, it's like an army of characters, and all the characters like they're well built. Like there's really not a character I look at and I'm like, oh, I hate them. There's not one of those. All the characters have nice things about them. They had nice moments throughout the show, and we hit this final season, and everyone wants like this grand finale for like each favorite character to just explode off the screen, and it's hard to execute that. And I don't know, I feel like just the majority of the season, they're trying to plug all these holes and solve all these problems. And by the end of it, like these answers and conclusions you get, you're kind of like, nah, I don't know if that was that satisfying. How do you do a grand finale for a show that's went on for so long with so many monsters? Like season 3, they're blowing up an entire mall. Season 2, you got all those, dog demogorgons that they had to fight, and like Elle's like sealing an opening and a rift like with her mind, and like there's explosions everywhere. Season 4 was like a huge awesome showdown between Eleven and Vecna, and like we get to this season and everyone's like, oh, how are they going to top all that? It's really hard to do. Regardless how you feel about this season in general, I just think the Duffer Brothers, they even admitted it. They're like, we shouldn't have done those interviews while the finale was coming out. And one of them said like he was really sick before, so he just felt like really tired. But it's kind of sad though, because I saw a post on social media. I don't know if it's 100% true, but I guess the Duffer Brothers have been like silent like for months since the Stranger Things have ended. I don't know if that's just them being tired for, just being on the road 24/7 doing Stranger Things all the time, or, maybe like this finale just took it out of them. But hopefully like the criticisms and all that stuff and all the super fanboys and fangirls that do complain, hopefully they don't take that too close to heart, because these shows are hard to end. They are hard to wrap up in a satisfying way to satisfy everyone, because everyone wants different things for different characters. And when you have an army of them, it's hard to do that. This season had way too many moments where they were like trying to solve or like show a solution to a problem by grabbing objects, and they're like, okay, this is Vecna and this is the wormhole. If we come into the wormhole like this, here, this can of Diet Coke is Dustin, and Dustin's gonna come over here, and it's like, quit grabbing objects. Like we've done this like 4 times this season. Like we gotta quit doing that. Apparently there's a rule in Netflix to where the Netflix executives are so concerned that consumers are washing their clothes while they're watching TV, so you need to explain the plot 3 or 4 times just to make sure that people get it, which is very silly. And if you do that too much, it does become apparent. And I think the little meetings and the get-togethers and the explaining of things like through objects, that becomes very repetitive, and like not very special anymore. I don't know, a lot of the lead up in Volume 2, I felt like it was kind of lackluster. There was a part to where the buildings were melting down. I thought that was really cool visually. I thought like one of the biggest things that did kind of anger me about this season is they've been teasing this love triangle between Steve and Jonathan and Nancy for like 10 years. Like Nancy started with Steve, then she went with Jonathan, and then they like got friction, and then like last season, like her and Steve started to like heat up a little bit, and there's just a lot of speculation on where she's gonna go. And then like while I'm watching, I'm like, man, I hope they just don't do like the typical thing and just like, well, no one ends up with her because they're all independent people. And it's like, that's cool to have an independent girl and independent guys like who don't need romance. But I mean, you've been teasing us for 10 years. Like, just let a side win. For as much flack as Twilight gets, at least Edward got Bella. Like, wouldn't it have been really lame if Edward and Jacob, the werewolf dog, how they're fighting for Bella, if Bella's just like, you know what? I just don't think I'll date anyone. And then like Edward and Jacob were like, cool, we'll be friends, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just all very silly to me. Why am I so fired up and wrapped up about our love triangle? Like, I just felt like that was one of the things that needed a conclusion. Like, I needed that more than the wormhole explanation of the Upside Down. The Upside Down could have been anything. The wormhole like wasn't mind-blowing to me. But like Jonathan and Nancy's like, he like pulls out a ring and he's like, will you break up with me? And they're like crying and laughing and they're like, oh, we like hate each other. Like, I thought that was so lame. I was like, oh my gosh, like, are people supposed to like get emotional? Like, oh my gosh, they don't like each other so much, but they respect each other. So as they're dying, they're like venting all the things they hate about each other and they're all about to drown. And then like he's like reverse proposing to her because like he doesn't want to be with her and she doesn't want to be with him. I was like, what are we doing? Come on. There was the big scene about Will coming out to all of his friends, and I thought that scene was fine. If there was any scene that was blown up out of proportion in this season, it was definitely that scene. I don't know. It's so funny to me because there's like two sides of the spectrum. And on like one side, there's like people like, oh my gosh, they had to have a gay moment. And it's like, dude, if you've been watching the show, he's been gay the whole time. Like, there are signs there. Like, did you not think it was going to happen? Like, it was going to happen eventually. And some people are like, well, they didn't have to do it before they go to war with Vecna. And it's like, no, the show specifically states a reason why he had to come out. Because Will, after he got his powers, he was all like, yeah, I'm going to go at Vecna and I'm going to take him on. And then when he did, Vecna's like, I don't think so. And basically put Will in his place. And then like when Will came back, he told his mom like, well, there's been things I've been keeping from people and Vecna used that against me. And I feel like I need to get that out into the air. That way in this final showdown, I can finally go against him and Vecna can't get into my head. So that's why he airs it out and he tells other people that he's gay. Like, it wasn't like they're all like going to battle and then he's like, wait, stop the truck. I don't like girls. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, they literally explained it and said why he had to tell them. So, like, when it happened, I was like, there's a reason for it. There were signs that he was gay. So it makes sense that he would do it now. And he does it. And it's like a nice emotional scene. I thought the actor did it very well. I don't know, the actor said the scene meant a lot to him. The Duffer Brothers said it took 12 hours to film, which I'm like, oh my God. Like, that was like, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes of dialogue that they did, and that took 12 hours. Like, that's insane. So I don't know, like, even the Duffer Brothers explaining that, I'm like, that seems like a lot. Like, imagine being an actor and like you have to play a part to where like you're a gay individual, and they're like, all right, so this scene, like, you're going to come out to your friends, and you're like, oh, that seems kind of easy, probably an emotional taxing one, but I think I can do it. And they're like, yeah, we're filming this for 12 hours. Like, what are we doing? So yeah, like even them, that seemed like excessive to film that much for like a couple minutes of an emotional scene. The people like straight up hating it and saying like, oh, of course they gotta make it gay. Like, it was there the whole time. There's a reason for it. And then there's like the other side of the spectrum to where like people are like, oh, he came out and said he was gay. That means Mike's gonna like Will. And then like people are like throwing hissy fits online that Mike and Will aren't together. And there was a thing like called like gay baiting, like, oh, they were teasing us this entire time. It's like, dude, Mike liked 11 this entire time. Like, I didn't think, Mike's allegiance of where he stood, his sexual preference, I don't think it swayed one bit during the show. And I think that was part of like the trauma to like Will. Like, bad things always happen to Will in this show. And Will like had this like very hard moment of like, he was realizing he was gay. He thought he liked his best friend. Best friend wasn't showing those emotions, and he was like trying to find a way out of it. Not to mention the kid's been abducted like 3 or 4 times, and he's been possessed. I mean, he's lived a hard life. But yeah, I thought that was obsessive, like, of people just saying like, oh, Mike and Will should have been together. Like, no, like that would have felt random. If he's just like, sorry, 11, I'm with Will now. Like, yeah, that would have been out of left field. And it was even funny, like, during the show, like, Will's like, oh, I appreciate you listening, Mike. And Mike's like, oh, no problem, dude. And Will's like, yeah, I guess that's what friends are for. And Mike, like, looks at him and goes, dude, we're not friends. We're more than that. And, like, Will's face, like, kind of brightens up for a second and goes, we're best friends. And then, like, Will's like, ah. And I don't like that, just made me laugh because it gave that little moment to like probably those people were like, please let Mike be with Will. And like when he said that, they're probably like freaking out, like, oh my God. And he's like, best friends. And then it's like, oh. So that part was kind of funny to me. The next thing I'll jump to is a showdown with Vecna. This is where I felt like it kind of dropped off big time. Because here's the thing. So it's 11 going into the lair. She's squaring off with Vecna again. Vecna comes down. They're doing their thing. All the other friends, they're like, oh, we got to go fight the Mind Flayer. In Vecna's world, like this entire show, we've had like really gross, oozy things. There's demogorgons. There's demodogs. There's demobats. There's like eels, I think, sometimes. Like, everything's just like slimy and gross looking in the upside down, which is all leaking from Vecna's world. So you're like, Vecna's world should be like really gross and leaky and just slimy. And instead it's like a desert. No demogorgons were present. The demogorgons were on vacation. That was a very weird call. There was a behind the scenes thing. And like one of the writers was like, I really think there should be demogorgons, demobats. Like those should be there in the world. If they're not there, it's wrong. And it shows one of the Duffer Brothers go, And apparently one of the Duffer Brothers said there was demogorgon fatigue, which I'm like, are you kidding me? Like that's the poster child of the show. Like, that's what you advertise for every season. Like, you're just going to say, like, nah, people are tired of it. Like, if they're tired of that, they're tired of your show, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is the finale. You should be sending everything out. Which, by the way, Vecna sends, like, these dogs to the hospital to get Max. And the scene itself was, like, really goofy because Lucas was carrying around, like, a boombox playing Running Up That Hill. And, like, he's got Max with him. And the demodogs literally are like looking for Max, like trying to kill all of them. And they're literally like 10 feet away. And Lucas is like blaring the boombox with this music. And I felt like any other season they would have like pounced and ripped the person apart. But still the demodogs in this one, they're like, like looking around. And it gives it enough time for like Mrs. Wheeler to like put a bomb in a washer and blow stuff up. And it's supposed to be a cool moment. But I'm like, man, like, come on. Like, this is like Cheese Town here. Like, what are we doing? But are you really telling me Vecna, who is like super ticked off in the moment, and he's like, oh, I have a trick up my sleeve. I'm going to get Max. And he like even tells the kids this. And like, he just sends 2 demodogs. Like, just 2 of them. That's all he's sending. So I mean, like, the demogorgons were like I don't know. There was a scarcity for them during the season. Apparently, they didn't want to have it in Vecna's world. They were afraid of Dema fatigue. I don't know. But this showdown with the Mind Flayer and Vecna versus 11. What really disappointed me is the showdown with 11 versus Vecna. They did the same thing in season 4, and I thought it was better in season 4. The Mind Flayer versus all the kids and them having guns and like using torches and bow and arrow, all that stuff. They did the same thing in the finale in season 3, and I thought season 3 was better. Also in season 3, while they were fighting the big Mind Flayer creature, 11 was squaring off with Billy, who was possessed by the Mind Flayer. So in a sense, Billy was like in place for Vecna. And again, I thought that was more of an emotional and more tense scene than this one. Like this one, I was kind of like, oh, we're doing this again, except in a desert with no Demogorgons or Demobats or any Dema anything that we did the entire show. So I thought the showdown between them was just very lackluster and boring. I don't know about boring. Nancy, they turned her into Rambo this last season. Like she's like popping out of trucks and like firing off automatic guns. I thought the first season she was just very handy with the pistol, but apparently that carries over to automatic weapons. She might have been training in between. I just kind of forgot. But I was like, man, they're just like, screw it. Nancy knows how to fire every single gun. And like poor Mike, they give him a flare gun, which is like symbolism for what they did for him the entire season. Just like, I don't know. Mike, just take something. Like you don't really have a role anymore. Sorry. Let's turn the camera to Robin again. One really cool scene that I thought after the showdown was when Vecna was impaled and they started to take an axe to Vecna's head. And every time they swung, it cut to a different character and it showed a different traumatic event that they went through. I thought that was a nice touch in editing. I thought that was a nice emotional editing touch. And I really liked that. The I'm trying to think. No, I'm skipping here. So there's the part where they get back. They're playing like Prince. I think it's Dove's Cry. Everything's happy-go-lucky. The army comes in, and they got all the characters. And then like the entire season, like 11's been like thinking about, sacrificing herself because the military will constantly be after them. And like, so when the military grabs them, 11 like blows up the entire Upside Down. The Upside Down was going to get blown up anyways. They had a bomb there. And like while it's going off, 11 steps into the Upside Down and like sacrifices herself. Mike's like screaming his head off. And it's like, poor Mike, doesn't really get a moment in the season unless he's bawling his eyes out. So he's really sad. And then like once 11 sacrifices herself, they cut to the post Upside Down part of the show to where they show where all of the characters are going. They're showing that Steve's becoming a teacher and, Jonathan wants to write a book about capitalism. I don't know. They're going on and on about it. Some of the parts were better than others. I like the Hopper and Joyce scene. I felt like that was really quick to the point. Like they're happy, even though Hopper just lost his second daughter. He's finding a way to move on. The part with Nancy and Robin and Jonathan and Steve, like I love all 4 of those characters, but man, that carried on for way too long. And did I love the direction that all 4 of them went? Not really. I liked that Steve became Derek's like baseball coach. That was kind of cool. It makes sense that he's a teacher because he does well with kids. So I guess it all kind of worked out. It showed like the 4 boys and like how all them going on. Dustin, he's the number 1 in class and he's doing shenanigans. He's wearing the Hellfire t-shirt. But there's a part to where like, Mike looks at a speaker and it seems like he like realizes something. And it cuts to them doing the Dungeons and Dragons, and they're doing it for the one last time. And I do think this was the best part of this season, unfortunately, because it's sad. It is sad. You're with these characters for so long, and you literally watch them grow up, and you watch them play, D&D for one last time. Max is there, and Mike's got the game set up, and like basically Mike alludes to a theory which was like part of the game that they were playing. That, basically he's inferring that 11 is still out there. She used her sister, which her sister, by the way, during volume 1, I'm like, oh, she is a bad guy. Like, she is up to no good. And then it's like, nah, like she was along for the ride and she died. And that's her role. She did play a role in like swaying 11 into sacrificing herself. Hopper didn't like her one bit, just like the rest of the fans of the season. Wow. I wanted to do a joke and I butchered it. I was going to say just like the rest of the fans of Stranger Things, but, I butchered that joke. So there you go. But yeah, she ends up dying. But she sways 11 into doing that. But she also has the power of manipulating vision, making people see stuff that isn't there. And apparently part of this theory is that 11 did not sacrifice herself. She snuck off. She's now in a different country and she's looking upon 3 waterfalls. It was a nice touch. And I felt like that decision to kind of put that in there, how you deal with 11 is going to affect a lot of fans. If you kill her off, you're going to tick off a lot of fans. If you let her live, you're going to tick off a lot of fans because they're going to be like, well, the military's just going to keep following them around. So it wouldn't surprise me if they rebooted it in another year. There's those types of people. Like there was the types of people they needed to see her die. And then there's the types of people they needed to see her live. And with that type of decision, you can kind of make your own decision. Like, did 11 actually die, or is she actually still out there? I actually like the theory that she's still out there. I know I just said there's too many characters and some needed to die, but 11 was one of them that I wanted to live. Like, to be honest, I think we could have killed Jonathan. I'm just putting that out there. I think Jonathan could have died. I think the Byers' parents, in the beginning that got attacked, they could have died. I don't know, there were some characters there that did not have to live, but, whatever. They're all likable. I get it. We wanted a nice ending, but 11 was the one that was like the balancing. Because like there is a point to like if you let her live, the military is going to keep coming. They did try to move to California. They tried that solution. Didn't work. The military showed up. So there was like really no solution in which 11 exists with the boys and the military doesn't stop coming. So this was like the one little solution they had to where like, well, the people who needed her alive, this is for you. And you can take it how you want. 11 could still be alive. She could be dead. I don't know. Mike could have just been making that up. But I do like that little bit there because I think that's the really divisive part of letting 11 live or letting her die. And I guess the reason why they did it is the Duffer brothers were literally split that way. One Duffer brother was like, no, she needs to live. Like, how are we just going to kill her off? And then the other one was like, no, how are we going to let her live? Like, military's going to keep coming. So, like, it all makes sense. It really does. And I think that was a solid way of going. And it was a nice little emotional send-off. And even though I thought the showdown with Vecna was lackluster, that send-off with them, like walking up the stairs, placing the boards, tears in their eyes, like it kind of pulled me back. And I felt a little emotional in the moment. I was like, oh man, like this is the end of Stranger Things. And then you see the younger kids come and they start playing D&D. I don't know. It's a nice coming of age ending to the show. Now, with that being said, I thought there was just like a lot of kind of letdown in this season. And again, that happens with every finale and every show. I did not watch this season. I did not hate it. I will say that. I think this was a better finale than Dexter. A better last season than Dexter. I'm sure when I finish Game of Thrones, I bet this last season probably won't be as bad as Game of Thrones. But I don't know. I think if I had to line up all the different seasons of Stranger Things, like this one's probably my least favorite. I don't know. It's just how I feel. There was good parts about it. Little delightful Derek. He was a nice addition. Holly, the girl who played Holly, she did a great job acting. She's from Evil Dead Rise. They actually like poached her from that movie, and they're like, wow, she's really talented. She did a good job like doing her role. I think they lingered too much with Holly, to whereas we wanted to like follow the four boys around. So like her taking up a lot of screen time, like that could be a part that's like really, I don't know, lackluster or disappointing. So if people are disappointed by that, I could definitely see it. So yeah, just throwing that in there as well. Like she did well with her role, but again, way too long with that. The guy who played Vecna, he killed the role. There's parts where he was running around and he had like his hand behind him, and I think he was like kind of impersonating Freddy Krueger, probably intentional. I felt like they took a lot of influence from Nightmare on Elm Street, which is cool. I felt like all the actors and actresses did a really well job acting out what they had. There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, these kids, they just phoned it in. Like they're sick of Stranger Things." Like there was like a little meme of a video of like Sadie Sink, the girl who plays Max. She was like sitting there while the Duffer Brothers were explaining something, and she kind of like stared off into the corner and then like looked back at them, and like the little caption was like, "Sadie's so over this show." And it's like, I really don't think she is. Like, you take any human being and like they're on set for as long as they are, you're going to space off at a wall. Like that just happens. Like not everyone's jumping up and down with excitement every second that they're at work. Work is still work. So I don't know. Like I think this season suffered really badly because of bad writing. I think some of the dialogue and like just script stuff that they wrote for the characters could sometimes be really cringy or bad or repetitive, like using the objects to shape stuff up. I think that was badly written, but I think the actors and actresses themselves, like when it came time to where they had to deliver an emotional scene, I think they did their best. And I think the girl who played 11, Millie Bobby Brown, I think she caught a lot of flack this season. Like one person made a comment about like lip filler or something. There's like maybe like one or two scenes where like it's like really apparent that like, I don't know, I guess she like kind of did an operation or something. I don't know all the details about it, but I mean like I think Millie Bobby Brown's a great actress. I really do. If you watch the season from the like get-go and like she's literally just a little kid and she has to play a bald lab kid who's like feral and doesn't know English, like she's killed it this entire show. In this last season, just because like she's learned a lot hanging around with friends and hanging around other humans and learning from Hopper, like her English is a little better. And there's sometimes the misconnect with language, like, her talking well and times where she's not talking well seemed a little inconsistent. But again, they're writing dialogue for these characters, so that's not on her. Like, when there was parts where she had to act like her English wasn't that great, that's in the script. When there's times where she delivers a line and it's like she knows English pretty well, guess what? That's in the script. I don't know. Like, I just don't understand the hate. Like, people, like, they promote these kids so high from such a young age. And then, like, when they're finally older and doing the last season, like, some people are trying to tear them down. I don't get that. These kids have done a great job the entire show. The show's been great for the most part the entire time just because the writing was bad for this last season. I don't understand trying to rip the kids down. I don't know. Just my general thoughts. I'm kind of on a soapbox here, and I think I've kind of went past my overall review for this season. I've talked a lot about it. I think it's pretty solid for a review of this season. So, do me a favor. Tell me what you thought of this season down in the comments. I might do a Stranger Things ranking episode. It might not be like too in-depth, like just kind of stuff I remember off the top of my head. But I think that might be fun to just kind of put out there. It might just be audio, not a lot of visual clips, just because I don't know, having to dig through all the seasons of Stranger Things and attach all that together. I kind of would just like to do it on the fly. I think it would be fun and maybe just put out there for discussion, because it's the wrap-up of Stranger Things. So, I don't know, we'll see how that goes. But, this has been my review for the overall final season of Stranger Things. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you could give it a like, it gets it out to other people. Feel free to subscribe so you know when the next episode's coming. And again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time.